Hello, my name is Terry Irwin, and I'm a professor in the School of Design at Carnegie Mellon University and the director of the Transition Design Institute there. This presentation is an overview of a 6-month research project to understand the perspectives and concerns of stakeholders connected to the problem of a lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs in the US and UK. This research was commissioned by the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center and was carried out by the Transition Design Institute at Carnegie Mellon, who are one of 10 partners researching the many facets of this complex wicked problem. This video describes the third of 6 data gathering steps that comprise the research, mapping the historic evolution of the problem of a lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs. In this step, stakeholders told us what they knew about the historical evolution of the problem over the course of multiple decades. Historical maps, like the one that resulted, are often created with input from both stakeholders and researchers alike. In this case, our research team conducted initial historic research on the problem, and stakeholders built upon that in the workshop. Maps like these can reveal insights from the past that can inform solutions in the present. The data gathered from the 4 stakeholder groups resulted in these 6 systems maps, and this video reports on the historic evolution map highlighted in the blue box and the insights that it produced. This step can be found on the far left of the Miro board, with the systems map at the top and the analysis situated directly below it. This map takes the form of a historical timeline that begins in 1300 AD and concludes in the present. Both our research team and the 4 stakeholder groups mapped issues and events that led to the problem of a lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs over the course of multiple decades. To begin, key issues from the problem map in step 1 became the departure point for research and mapping. The map uses a methodology developed in Northern Europe called the multi-level perspective framework, which is used to map transitions within large socio-technical systems over multiple decades or even hundreds of years. The framework is divided into 3 systems levels, upon which events, social factors, and technological innovations are mapped. Large collective events are situated at the top landscape level, and small innovative or disruptive events and factors are at the bottom niche level. The top and bottom systems levels impact on the middle regime level or status quo, where established ways of doing things reside. It's this level that forms the context for the problem, and it's this level that is resistant to change and problem resolution. Connections are drawn between events in the 3 levels that illustrate the dynamics of transition within these large socio-technical systems and show both causal and feedback relationships among the issues. The purpose of these maps is to reveal insights about the past that can lead to a deeper multi-perspectival understanding of the problem in the present that can in turn inform systemic solutions to the problem. Here you can see that large events like housing and education inequity at the landscape level is connected to issues related to gentrification at the regime level. Further along the timeline, we see that violence against minorities at the niche level is connected at a higher systems level to the recent anti-racism movements. It's really impossible to encapsulate the hundreds of historical factors that are mapped and connected in this video presentation. So of all of the maps, this is the one that most merits perusal on the Miro board. Countless narrative threads can be followed within the map and can serve different purposes. Some narratives might chart the evolution of social beliefs and cultural norms that are problematic, while others might cite and connect key events, pieces of legislation, or social movements that better explain the lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs. The analysis board that sits directly beneath the map has listed key narrative threads that run throughout the timeline. And to the right of each, the research team has provided an overview of these narratives, storylines, and subthemes within each category. Here we see narratives within the categories of US enslavement labor that began with a country's founding, and the way in which systemic oppression extends into the educational sector, as well as land and property ownership, which affects minorities' inability to accrue generational wealth. The storylines that were mapped within the financial category are particularly relevant to the problem of a lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs and highlight issues such as the domination of the private equity sector by wealthy white families until the passage of the Small Business Investment Act of 1958, which marked the first small step toward achieving more inclusive financing and support. However, the map also looks at social beliefs, assumptions, and cultural norms that contribute to the problem, as well as the way in which media and the internet exacerbated it. In the right-hand column of this analysis board, the research team has speculated on possible interventions in the present that might emerge out of the historical analysis. And we also documented some of the historic topics and themes that informed the initial research. You'll notice that this video is considerably shorter than the other 6. And it's really because of the breadth and the depth of information contained within this very long map. We encourage users to visit the Miro board, spend time with the map, and try to find different pathways through it that can lead to new and additional narratives with personal meaning. This concludes the 4th video in this series of research reports. The next research step asks stakeholders to jump from the distant past to the distant future and try to imagine what it would look like for their stakeholder group if the problem were resolved. Participants imagined how their lives might be different if the problem of a lack of funding for minority entrepreneurs had been resolved. And we asked them to do this within the context of their everyday lives at different levels of scale. This co-envisioning exercise produces a map that shows how different stakeholder groups feel about the future, identifies areas in which they agree, and captures their ideas about solutions and tangible actions for the present. Please access video number 5 in the research series called Co-Creating Future Visions to review the